I'm Dwayne Brown. Tonight on KPBS Evening Edition, a drone's eye view of the damage left behind by two massive wildfires burning in Northern California. The grim milestone reached by both blazes.
I'm Peggy Pico with California Assembly Speaker Toni Atkins. Will she run for San Diego mayor or state senate? And her take on some high-profile bills still on the governor's desk. Plus, what Southern California Edison thinks about the county supervisor's request to remove spent nuclear fuel at the San Onofre power plant.
It kind of feels good when your body gets all tossed around in the water, you know, because you forgot you even had those muscles.
It's one of the fringe benefits of living in San Diego, the special group of surfers inspiring fans on land and sea. KPBS Evening Edition starts right now. Hi, good evening. Thanks for joining us. San Diegans are marching downtown on this, the day the NAACP's 860-mile journey for justice actually ended. The National March started in Selma, Alabama, and finished yesterday in Washington, D.C. KPBS Fronteras reporter Jean Guerrero joins us from the march in downtown San Diego.
Close to 100 people have gathered here at the City Hall concourse on C Street, and they're planning to march to this county administration building by the bay. Some are holding up signs saying Black Lives Matter, our jobs matter, our schools matter, our votes matter. I spoke to one of the protesters who told me why he's here.
I think some of the main issues, again, is that Black life matters. Not only Black life, but all life matters. All life is important to us as citizens of San Diego, especially as the mayor talks about us coming together as one San Diego. So anytime you lose a life to violence of any sort, whether it be to law enforcement in a law enforcement involved situation,
which is message. The national campaign commemorates a 1965 march that also started in Selma. That highlighted social inequality as well. Some people here also said that they want the video of a recent San Diego police shooting released. Jean Guerrero, KPBS News.
The soaker in September shattered records in San Diego. More than an inch of rain recorded at Lindbergh Field, breaking a record set in 1906 yesterday. Oceanside, Harbor, and Vista broke records too. Highways flooded by mud and debris triggered several crashes. CHP logged nearly 400 accidents from midnight yesterday to 9 Tuesday night. It was San Diego's fourth wettest day ever in September, which is normally dry. Flash flooding in Utah killed 18 people. Authorities there say it's a wake-up call for the community as rising river levels caught everyone off guard.
Oh dear, there's two vehicles. Oh no, there's two vehicles.
Two cars parked with families caught up in rushing waters Monday near the Arizona border. 6 visitors at Zion National Park also died in the flooding. The search continues for survivors. An update on the massive wildfires burning in Northern California. The Calaveras County Sheriff says a body was found inside one of the damaged homes at the site of the Butte fire. It's destroyed more than 200 homes and scorched 71,000 acres. Evacuation orders have been lifted, allowing some people to see the damage in Lake County near Napa. Some homes there were reduced to ash and rubble. Firefighters say the Butte and Valley fires are among the top 20 most damaging blazes in California's history. FBI says people are being bought and sold like modern-day slaves. KPBS education reporter Matt Bowler spoke with a professor who is working to find a new way to fight human trafficking.
It seems crazy.
It is crazy.
That's Murray Jennings, professor of Management Information Systems for San Diego State's College of Business Administration. He's talking about the internet and how it's used by human traffickers. Jennings and his graduate student, Marissa Holtgren, came up with the idea of using the same marketing tools that Google and Facebook use, but this time to catch criminals.
The idea that she had, which we followed through on, was we should be looking at online advertisements.
They looked at about 5,000 ads from websites like Craigslist and Backpage. Jennings says they found victims everywhere.
We looked at San Jose, a lot of cities here in California. They all have victims. They're so beaten down that they basically do whatever they're told, and the people trafficking them tell them, advertise yourself.
The websites don't allow this, and it's illegal. But criminals use code words in the ads that don't appear to be illegal.
Things like that that seem to indicate a low age, and are probably much lower, but which doesn't arouse the police to come and do something about it. These people are truly exploited. But at the same time, because we can identify their characteristics, we can build profiles of who they are, and then use that to find them and capture the people who are doing the trafficking and, free these people.
Jenix says his students' research is being shown to law enforcement. They hope they've found a new way of using business tools to save lives. Matt Bowler, KPBS News.
Demanding sex education for all middle and high school students in California, supporters rallied today at the state capitol. They want Governor Brown to sign a bill to require all California students learn about abstinence, sexually transmitted diseases, and contraception.
So what we need more comprehensive sex ed, and also touches on healthy relationships, body positive images, and how to feel better about yourself, and more related on LGBTQ inclusiveness too.
A survey by UC San Francisco says many public schools were out of compliance with a law requiring sex ed. Researchers found about 1/4 of schools skipped topics on HIV prevention. We saw political setbacks for the Democratic leadership in Sacramento. Last week, Governor Brown was forced to drop a key component in his climate change proposal. State Assembly Speaker Toni Atkins talks with Peggy Pico about wrapping up the legislative session and what's next.
Assembly Speaker Toni Atkins, good seeing you again.
Thank you. It's good to be here, Peggy.
Now, California's regular legislative session ended last Friday, leaving dozens of bills on the governor's desk to sign. One is the Right to Die bill that passed the Senate with a 23-14 vote. Remind us of what that bill is.
Well, it basically gives a terminally ill patient the right to make a decision of how they end their lives with their doctor.
And do you support the bill, or do you think the governor will sign it?
Well, I support the bill, and I think what became evident during the discussion is that so many people have stories. I have my own story. My mother, I sat with her for 2 weeks. She had terminal cancer, and so certainly a lot of us bring our personal stories to bear. I don't know what the governor will do. I think, but he has a very deliberative and thoughtful process. I know he takes this issue very seriously, and so I think right now you're going to find that everybody's reaching out to him to let him know what they think.
All right. Now, last week, Governor Brown agreed to drop the requirement for a 50% reduction of petroleum use in vehicles. That's on the state climate action bill. Do you think this final version of the bill will last? Do you think it has teeth?
Oh, SB 350 is significant climate change legislation. I think everyone started to focus on the one piece that was taken longer or may take longer, the fuels piece, to move forward on. But 50% renewable portfolio energy resources is pretty significant. It's an aggressive goal. Right now we're at 33%. This is 50% by 2030. We're also talking about energy efficiency up and down the state and our buildings to make our energy grid more productive, efficient. Those are significant pieces of legislation, not just for the state, for the country, but also we're recognized in the world for our aggressive approach to this. So I think we focused on the piece we didn't get. We should be focusing on the significant landmark legislation.
The two pieces that still remain. Now, California voters also approved marijuana nearly 20 years ago.
Right.
There's new legislation about that. The governor himself helped with that package. Right. What would that package of legislation do?
Well, it basically sets up a bureau and regulations to overall regulate medical marijuana. This is something that should have happened decades ago. It's been very hard for the state to come together and regulate this. It's about time. So we had input from law enforcement, patient advocates, dispensaries. So this was a multi-year work in progress. 7 members from the Senate and the Assembly and the governor's office. So it's about time, and I think this is finally time that we have this in place.
Now let's talk about you. You've been Assembly Speaker since 2014, but recently Assemblyman Anthony Rendon was elected to replace you as Speaker. You asked for that vote to be delayed. How come?
Well, I wanted us not to be distracted by a speakership campaign the last 2 weeks of session. There was discussion that we would do this in January, and all of the candidates agreed, but it was a natural progression. It happened when I transitioned into Speaker with the former Speaker John Perez, and so in order to keep us focused on the work that we needed to do, I moved the timeline up and said we need to go ahead and do this so our last week can be productive. So I am still the speaker. There's one speaker at a time. We're looking at early spring for
that transition.
And so between now and then, we've got special session, transportation, healthcare. There's still a great deal of work.
Sure, and that's because you're terming out at the end of 2016. Now, I'm sure you've heard of this. So are you running against California Senator Marty Block? Do you have plans to do so?
Well, I will say this. That's a decision I have to make. I have found that the best way that I think I can fight for San Diego is in the state capitol. I went to Sacramento to work on affordable housing, and in that time period, being the majority leader, becoming speaker, a relationship with the governor, I really think that I am most effective at the state capitol. So certainly that's a decision I have to make and to come, but in the meantime, I still have a lot that I can do as speaker in Sacramento for San Diego.
So that being said, then are you saying you're not going to run for mayor against Kevin Faulconer?
Well, I think I've already said that multiple times. Publicly, on air. I think I said it at KPBS on one of the radio show a while ago. But again, I want to focus on the work that I can do for San Diego in Sacramento. I don't think you give up that opportunity. I think I've been pretty successful on behalf of San Diego during my time in Sacramento for San Diego, and I want to continue to do that.
All right, California Assembly Speaker Toni Atkins, thank you.
Thank you, Peggy.
Debate number 2 tonight for GOP hopefuls running for president. This one is being held at the Reagan Presidential Library near Los Angeles. 11 Republican candidates are facing off this evening. Billionaire Donald Trump is the front runner. Former business exec Carly Fiorina also made the cut. Several of the candidates have already linked their policies to Ronald Reagan in campaign speeches. Researchers from UC San Diego and Stanford have identified a molecule that helps heart muscle cells regenerate after a heart attack. From our North County Bureau, Kenny Goldberg tells us the discovery was successfully tested in mice and pigs.
Thanks to advanced treatments, most people survive an initial heart attack, but their heart suffers permanent damage and often fails within a few years. When researchers put the recently discovered protein in a patch and applied it to damaged animal heart muscle, the hearts regained close to normal function within 8 weeks. Researchers say it's important to test the intervention in more pigs. In addition, they want to find out how long after a heart attack the intervention will still work. Researchers say it might be possible to test the patch in human trials within 2 years. Kenny Goldberg, KPBS News.
It's an ambitious goal to eliminate all traffic deaths in San Diego by the year 2025. A city council committee gave it the thumbs up today. The Vision Zero plan asks for more walkable and transit-friendly neighborhoods. It identifies 8 corridors where collisions are concentrated throughout the city. The non-binding resolution calls on city leaders to create a task force to craft a citywide plan to reach the Vision Zero goal. San Diego is moving closer to raising water rates. The Public Utilities Department wants a 10% increase starting next year and another 7% to follow in July. They say if water rates don't go up, the city will fall behind on funding its debt service, sending a bad signal to credit rating agencies. A public hearing is set for November 17th. An upswing for San Diego's housing market. The median price of a home in the county rose by about 5% in August compared with the same period a year ago. A new report shows the number of homes sold also jumped, with more than 3,000 homes sold in the county, 300 more than the previous year. Southern California home sales were down 12%. Experts say it could be a reflection of a tightening of inventory or the impact of rising prices. Following up now on the latest moves by county supervisors who want to get rid of nuclear waste at San Onofre. As Peggy Pico explains, the goal is one that is unifying many people.
San Diego County supervisors will send a letter to the U.S. Secretary of Energy urging prompt removal and relocation of hundreds of tons of nuclear waste at the San Onofre nuclear power plant site. Joining me with why the supervisors made this move and the possible next steps are my guest, County Supervisor Ron Roberts, and UC San Diego Professor David Victor, chair of the San Onofre Community Engagement Panel. And Supervisor Roberts, why did the county supervisors vote on this issue and decide to send a letter to the Energy Secretary?
Well, we're feeling that this is the wrong place for long-term storage of this material on the coast in the middle of a large population in a high earthquake-prone area. The federal government really needs to move on a solution, an effective long-term solution, and this isn't it. So we thought we've got to basically shine a spotlight on this.
Well, let's talk about that possible solution, because the proposed Yucca Mountain nuclear storage site in Nevada is non-existent as of yet. So there doesn't seem to be any real place the government can move it.
Well, there are things that are being looked at that might even involve the private sector for better locations than we have that are not a coastal area or an earthquake area, where you'd at least have a degree of stability in the local geography and climate.
I see. Now, David, what concerns have you heard from community outreach panels about waste storage?
Well, we've heard very much the same thing that Ron mentioned. I think people have been surprised and annoyed to learn that there's no long-term federal strategy for removing the waste from the site. And since the whole site is being decommissioned, the fuel is just going to stay there for the indefinite future. And so we've heard a lot of concerns about that, and now, frankly, over the last year, a lot of interest in these private sector solutions, these so-called interim storage solutions. There's a site that's emerging in New Mexico, one in West Texas, and the idea is to help get ourselves ready so that we're one of the first plants in line to be able to send the fuel.
Let's talk about the storage containers just for a minute for the spent fuel. On the one hand, Southern California Edison says, listen, they're safe. But on the other hand, you have these concerns that maybe perhaps it's still important to move the waste. How do you justify both those sides?
Well, you want to have the most robust technology for storing the fuel at the site while the fuel's there. We've spent a lot of time looking at that. We're not a decision-making body. We've spent a lot of time looking at that. And then once you've got it in the most robust technology, you still want to avoid the situation that Ron was talking about, where the fuel is decentralized at 60 or so sites across the country, including at places like San Onofre that are otherwise shut down. So that's the urgency in getting it off the site eventually.
I'm not sure who can address this. I'll start with you, David. How often are the casks and the concrete containers holding that spent fuel? How often are they inspected, and who inspects them?
Well, this is going to be a very important area, and this is where we are now setting up and demanding of the industry that they articulate what their strategy is here. Currently, the Nuclear Regulatory Commission relicenses them every 20 to 40 years. And what's, I think, likely to happen is inspection routines are going to get more frequent, there's going to be more data collected, and there's going to be a much more robust kind of defense in-depth system, especially because until we have these interim sites or until we have Yucca Mountain or something else, with the fuel there for many decades, you want a system that is able to withstand the weathering over time and then know whether there are parts of it that need to be replaced.
Right, so let me bring that to you, Supervisor Roberts. Aside from moving the waste, what other precautions would you like to see Edison take at this site?
Well, obviously, we want a very, very aggressive inspection program. You know, we're not questioning the technology that they're using. We think this probably represents the best practices. We're just not convinced that the best practices is a long-term solution. In fact, we're convinced of the opposite. In my own experience with structural and architectural design and working on earthquake design, I know we always learn things after a major incident, and we rewrite the rules. I don't want to have to rewrite the rules with respect to nuclear waste because at San Diego's expense. I think we've got to start working on a shorter long-term solution, if you will, to get it's not going to happen today or tomorrow, but it's really incumbent upon the federal government at these many sites, 30 or 40 sites throughout the country, to start to consolidate into the most stable environment possible.
What do you think the next step, how do you think that letter will be received?
Probably ignored. I don't think that one letter, I think they'll acknowledge they received a letter. What we have to do and what we are doing is instructing our lobbying team in Washington, D.C., this is a priority for us, okay? We want to find out who do we need to talk to. Diane, Jacob, and I will be a subcommittee. If need be, we will go. We'll meet with whoever we want to raise this to another level. We want to complement the concerns that we've heard in the advisory committee. Let's see if we can move to a real solution that's long term.
Okay, Supervisor Ron Roberts and David Victor, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Imagine a flag for the independent nation of California. Supporters gained the green light today from the Secretary of State to gather signatures for a new ballot initiative. Their proposal calls for a vote every 4 years on whether California should become a separate nation. If voters agree, supporters could also pose the question if California should declare its independence from the U.S. The initiative needs more than 365,000 signatures to qualify for next year's ballot in November.
I'm Gwen Eichel on the next News Hour. What to expect on stage tomorrow night at the Reagan Library. We preview the Republican debate. That's Wednesday on the PBS News Hour.
Honoring San Diegans at City Hall, September marks Latino Heritage Month. Dozens of people showed up in the lobby at City Hall today, where several Barrio Logan artists were recognized for their colorful murals celebrating 45 years in Chicano Park. Victor Ochoa says he's been at it so long the kids call him old school.
I've been working with graffiti artists for 17 years to deal with some of those issues of vandalism and those things. I'm the one that started a writer's block and battlegrounds here in San Diego. So positively trying to work with the upcoming generations is one of the things that we want to start, developing.
A longtime radio personality was also recognized for his community contributions. Xavier the X-Man has used music to touch countless lives. The city proclaimed the day in his honor. Surfing is one of San Diego's fringe benefits, but folks who live in wheelchairs rarely get to enjoy it. KPBS health reporter Kenny Goldberg and video journalist Katie Shulove show us more than 100 people with disabilities who enjoyed the waves.
Ray, get some good waves?
It's a busy Saturday at La Jolla Shores, and 10-year-old Hunter Pokup is ready for the one day each year he gets to surf.
In the other sports I play, you don't go in the water.
Pokup has spina bifida and spends most of his time in a wheelchair.
I'm your favorite surfer.
But today, his buddy Corey Staley and other volunteers take him out into the surf. This is Hunter's 5th Life Rolls On event, and he rides the waves like a seasoned pro.
1, 2, 3.
Staley is one of about 500 volunteers here to help people with spinal cord injuries and disorders experience the joys of surfing. The Marina Del Rey-based Life Rolls On Foundation organized the event. Life Rolls On stages similar surfathons throughout California and up and down the East Coast. Staley heads up the Red Team. He's been working these events since they started 14 years ago.
Well, to be honest with you, I tell people this all the time. I actually feel selfish. Like, I get so much out of being here.
Staley remembers one young man his team took out surfing a few years ago. When they got him out in the water, the man said he wanted to take just a few moments to float around and soak up some rays.
Sat there for probably 4 minutes. No one said a word. You looked around, and there's 6 of us guys, kind of manly. Every single one of us with tears in his eyes. And he looked at it and said, this is the first time since my accident that I'm not in a chair, that I'm free, and I'm no different than anybody else.
Sharp Rehabilitation Services is co-sponsor of Saturday's event. Sharp Rehab's medical director, Dr. Jerome Stengem, says it's a great opportunity for people with spinal cord injuries and disorders to challenge themselves.
People don't know what their limitations are or what they can do until they try things. And so this is a great example of something a person with a disability would think, I can't do that. Give them an opportunity and they can do it. And it opens up not only this opportunity, but many others, I think.
120 people will get their shot at surfing today. They're assigned to one of 7 different teams, each with its own color t-shirt. Each person gets a 20-minute window to surf. 52-year-old Sheehan Werner has done a lot of adaptive sports and has even gone skydiving, but he's never surfed before.
Are we ready to go? Yeah, we are.
Members of the blue team carefully put him in position and take him out. After a couple of minutes, they get the all-clear signal and push Werner into a wave. Team members cheer him on as he glides into shore. After riding a few more waves and wiping out once or twice, Werner is wheeled back up the beach. He can think of one word that describes the experience: awesome.
It kind of feels good when your body gets all tossed around in the water, you know, because you forgot you even had those muscles. Yeah, it was really neat.
1, 2, 3. Life rolls on!
Werner is already looking forward to surfing again next year, and the blue team will be waiting for him. Kenny Goldberg, KPBS News.
Enjoy the mild weather while it lasts. San Diego will feel a warm-up by the end of the week. 70s and 80s along the coast over the next few days. 80s, 90s for the inland valleys. Mostly clear in the mountains with 70s and 80s. And 90s back to the triple digits in the desert. Here's a look at what we're working on for tomorrow in the KPBS newsroom on Morning Edition, the wild tale of an indie film company. That's tomorrow on KPBS Radio. You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. Thanks for joining us. You have a great night.